Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Valiant, watching the stars pass by through the large windows. The ship was quiet except for the soft hum of engines. They had been traveling for 3 weeks now, heading to a new colony world. Where humans wanted to build homes, Jake was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been captain of the Valiant for 10 years. In that time, he had seen many strange things in space. But today felt different. Today felt like something was about to change. "Captain," called Lisa Brady from her station. She was the ship's communications officer, a young woman with bright red hair and sharp green eyes. "I'm getting something. Odd on the long-range sensors." Jake walked over to her station. "What kind of odd?" "It's a signal, sir. Very weak, but it's definitely there. It's not from any human ship or station." Lisa's fingers moved quickly over her controls. "It's coming from the Zelani system." Jake knew about the Zelani. They were one of the peaceful races in the galaxy. Their bodies were made of something like crystal, and they lived on a world far from Earth. The Zelani had never hurt anyone. They spent their time making beautiful art and music. "Can you clean up the signal?" Jake asked. Lisa worked for several minutes. The bridge was silent, except for the sound of her typing. Finally, she looked up with worry in her eyes. "Sir, you need to hear this." She played the signal. At first, it was just static and noise. Then a voice came through. It was high and musical, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. But the voice was full of fear. "This is Elder Zethara of Zilara Prime. Our world is under attack. The Korthic Empire has surrounded our planet. They demand we surrender, or they will destroy us all. We have no weapons. We have no ships that can fight. We are a peaceful people. Please, if anyone can hear this, help us. We have maybe 3 days before they kill us all." The message repeated several times, then faded into static. The bridge was quiet for a long moment. Jake felt a cold feeling in his stomach. The Korthic Empire was known throughout the galaxy as brutal conquerors. They took worlds by force and killed anyone who stood in their way. They had destroyed dozens of peaceful worlds already. How long ago was this sent? Jake asked. Lisa checked her instruments. "About 6 hours ago, sir. The signal has been traveling through space to reach us." Jake did the math in his head. If the Zelani had 3 days when they sent the message, they now had less than 3 days. Even if he turned the ship around right now and flew at top speed, it would take them almost 2 days to reach the Zelani system. "Sir," said Commander Tony Garcia, the ship's second in command, "we should report this to Earth Command. Let them decide what to do." Jake nodded slowly. That was the right thing to do, according to the rules. But he also knew how long it would take. Earth Command would need to discuss it. They would need to ask permission from the Galactic Council. By the time they made a decision, the Zelani would be dead. "Lisa, try to contact Earth Command," Jake said. "Send them a copy of this message." Lisa worked at her station for several minutes. Then she shook her head. "I can't reach them, sir. We're too far out, and there's some kind of interference." Jake looked at the stars again. He thought about the Zelani, peaceful people who had never hurt anyone. He thought about the Korthic, who killed entire worlds just because they could. He thought about his duty as a captain and his duty as a human being. "Sir," said Dr. Kevin Park, the ship's doctor. He was a quiet man who rarely spoke on the bridge. "I've met some Zelani before. They're good people. They wouldn't hurt a fly." Jake made his decision. "Set course for the Zelani system. Maximum speed." "Sir?" Commander Garcia looked surprised. "We don't have orders to. We have orders to protect innocent life," Jake said firmly. "That's what being human means." Lisa started working at her station. "Course laid in, sir. We'll reach the Zelani system in 36 hours. Good. Now, I want you to send a message on all human frequencies. Tell every human ship and station what's happening. Tell them we're going to help the Zelani, and we could use some company. Sir, Commander Garcia said quietly, this could be seen as starting a war without permission. Jake looked at his old friend. They had served together for many years. Tony, the war already started. The Korthiks started it when they decided to murder innocent people. We're just choosing which side we're on. The next few hours were busy. Lisa sent the message to every human ship and station she could reach. The response was immediate and surprising. Ship after ship reported that they were changing course to help. Some were military vessels, but many were civilian ships, cargo haulers, mining ships, even tourist vessels. Jake was amazed. Humans from all over the galaxy were dropping everything to help people they had never met. It was dangerous. It was against regulations. It might even be considered an act of war. But it was the right thing to do. As the Valiant flew through space. Toward the Zelani system, Jake stood on the bridge and watched the stars. Behind him, his crew worked quietly and efficiently. They all knew what they were flying into. They all knew they might not come back, but they also knew that sometimes being human meant standing up for those who couldn't stand up for themselves. Even if it meant flying into hell itself, the Zelani had asked for help. The humans were coming, and Jake Morrison had a feeling that the galaxy was about to learn what it really meant to be from Earth. Admiral Kate Sullivan sat in her office at Earth Command, reading reports from across human space. She was a small woman with short gray hair and steel blue eyes. For 30 years, she had commanded human forces in space. She had seen wars, peace, treaties, and everything in between, but she had never seen anything like what was happening. Now, her desk was covered with messages from ship captains. Every one of them said the same thing. They were heading to the Zelani system to help fight the Korthik Empire. They weren't asking for permission. They were just going. "Ma'am," said Colonel Ben Wright, her aide, "we have another problem. The Galactic Council is asking questions about our ship movements." Kate looked up from her reports. "What kind of questions?" "They want to know why so many human ships are moving toward the Zelani system. They're worried we might be planning something." Kate almost laughed. The Galactic Council was made up of dozens of alien species. They met to discuss problems and make decisions about galaxy-wide issues, but they moved slowly and carefully. They liked to debate and study and think about things for months before acting. The Zelani would be dead long before the Council decided to help them. "Tell the Council we're conducting training exercises," Kate said. "Ma'am, that's not exactly true." Kate stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see the space docks where human ships were built and repaired. Right now, she could see the USS Devastator, an experimental warship that was supposed to be too dangerous to use. The ship's captain, Neil Walsh, had already requested permission to join the fleet heading to Zalara Prime. "Colonel, let me ask you something," Kate said. "How many innocent people should we let die while we fill out paperwork?" Ben Wright was quiet for a moment. "I understand, ma'am. But if we do this without Council approval, it could cause problems." Kate turned back to her desk. On her computer screen was a message from Captain Jake Morrison of the USS Valiant. He was asking for official support for what he was calling Operation Hellbound. He wasn't asking for permission to help the Zelani. He was asking for help to save them. Kate made her decision. "Send a message to all human fleet commanders. Tell them that any ship that wants to participate in Operation Hellbound has my personal authorization." "Ma'am, that's not exactly following proper procedure." "Sometimes proper procedure gets innocent people killed," Kate said. "Send the message." While Colonel Wright worked on the message, Kate looked at the reports on her desk. The heavy cruiser USS Reaper, under Captain Dan Cross, was already changing course. The assault carrier USS Warhawk, commanded by Colonel Amy Thompson, had left its training mission to join the fleet. Even civilian ships were getting involved. The mining ship Ironclad, captained by Rick Stone, was heading to the Zelani system. Rick was a tough old man who had spent his life digging minerals out of asteroids. His ship wasn't built for war, but he was bringing it anyway. The merchant vessel Starbound, under Captain Helen Moore, was also coming. Helen was a grandmother who usually carried supplies between human colonies. Now she was carrying extra food and medical supplies for the rescue mission. Kate's computer chimed with a new message. This one was from Dr. Vex High, a council xenobiologist who studied different species. The message was marked urgent. Admiral Sullivan, the message read, I am monitoring the human fleet movements with great interest. The response pattern your species is showing is unprecedented. No other species in our records has ever responded to a crisis involving strangers with such speed and determination. I would like to study this phenomenon further. Please advise. Kate deleted the message. She didn't have time for alien scientists who wanted to study humans like lab rats. Her computer chimed again. This time it was Captain Morrison from the USS Valiant. His message was short. Admiral, we're 12 hours out from the Zelani system. We count 47 human ships converging on our position. Request permission to engage hostile forces. Kate looked at the message for a long moment. If she gave Morrison permission to attack the Corphic, it would be an act of war. Earth would be committed to a fight that could spread across the galaxy dot. But if she didn't give permission, an entire species would die. Colonel Wright, she called. Yes. Ma'am, send a message to Captain Morrison. Tell him he has full authorization to defend innocent life by any means necessary. Ma'am, are you sure about this? Kate thought about the Zelani. She had met some of them years ago at a diplomatic meeting. They were gentle, artistic people who had never known violence. They lived in crystal cities and spent their time creating beautiful music and art. The idea of them being slaughtered by the Corphic made her sick. Send the message, she said firmly. As Colonel Wright worked on the message, Kate walked back to the window. She could see more ships preparing to leave the docks. The USS Devastator was powering up its engines. The research vessel, USS Discovery, commanded by Dr. Paul Kennedy, was loading supplies, even though it was never meant to be a warship. Across human space, the same thing was happening. Ships were leaving their posts, abandoning their missions, and heading toward the Zelani system. They were going to help people they had never met, risking their lives for strangers. Kate's personal communicator buzzed. It was a message from her daughter, who was serving on a transport ship near the outer colonies. Mom, we heard about what's happening. My captain wants to help, but we don't have any weapons. Is there anything we can do? Kate smiled for the first time that day. Her daughter was 25 years old and had never seen combat, but she was willing to fly into a war zone to help save innocent people. Tell your captain to stay safe. Kate replied, but if there's a way to help, do it. The next few hours were chaos. Reports came in from all over human space. Ships were converging on the Zelani system from every direction. Some were military vessels with powerful weapons. Others were civilian ships with mining equipment that could be used as weapons. A few were just cargo ships carrying supplies for the rescue mission. Kate stood in the command center, watching the big screen that showed human ship movements. It looked like a river of light flowing toward the Zelani system. Hundreds of ships, thousands of people, all heading toward a fight that wasn't theirs. Admiral, said Colonel Wright, we're getting reports that some alien species are concerned about our movements. They think we might be planning to invade someone. Kate shook her head. We're not invading anyone. We're going to save them. Aliens don't seem to understand the difference. Kate looked at the screen again. The human fleet was almost ready. Soon, they would face the Korthic Empire in battle. Some of them would die. Some of them would never come home. But they were going anyway, because that's what humans did. They stood up for the innocent, even when it was dangerous. Even when it was stupid. Even when the whole galaxy thought they were crazy. The Korthic Empire was about to learn what it meant to threaten innocent people when humans were watching. And Kate Sullivan was proud to be the one giving the orders. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zalani system. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Valiant, looking at the screen that showed what they were facing. His stomach dropped. The Korthic Empire had brought everything they had. Dozens of warships surrounded the beautiful blue-green world of Zelara Prime. The Korthic ships were huge and black, covered in spikes and weapon ports. They looked like metal monsters floating in space. "Count?" Jake asked. 43. "Enemy ships, sir," reported Lisa Brady from her station. "All of them bigger than anything we have." Jake looked at his own fleet. 47 human ships had made it to the system. Some were military vessels, but many were civilian ships that had never been in a fight. They were outnumbered and outgunned. "Sir," said Commander Tony Garcia, "we're getting a message from the Korthic flagship. Put it on screen." The main screen flickered, and suddenly Jake was looking at Admiral Gorth Ek, commander of the Korthic fleet. The alien was huge, with dark green scales and yellow eyes. His mouth was full of sharp teeth, and scars covered his face and arms. "I am Admiral Gorthik," the alien said in a voice like grinding metal. "You are the humans, yes? I have heard. Of your kind. You live on a death world and think you are strong." Jake stepped forward. "I am Captain Jake Morrison of the human fleet. You are attacking innocent people. Leave this system now, and we won't have to hurt you." Admiral Gorthik laughed. It was a horrible sound, like rocks falling down a cliff. "Hurt us? Little human, we have conquered 47 worlds. We have destroyed entire species. Your tiny fleet cannot stop us." "Maybe not," Jake said, "but we're going to try." The Korthic admiral looked amused. "You would die for these crystal creatures? They are not even your kind. They are weak. They deserve to die." Jake felt anger rising in his chest. Nobody deserves to die just because they're peaceful. That's what makes you different from us. You hurt the weak. We protect them. "Protect them?" Admiral Gorthik laughed again. "With what? Your ships are old and ugly. Your weapons are primitive. You cannot win." "We don't have to win," Jake said. "We just have to make sure you lose." The screen went black. The Korthic admiral had cut the connection. "All ships," Jake said into his communicator. "This is Captain Morrison. You all know why we're here. The Korthic think they can murder innocent people because nobody will stop them. They're wrong. Today, we show them what happens when you threaten the helpless while humans are watching." Across the fleet, captains responded. Captain Dan Cross, of the USS Reaper. "Ready to fight, sir." Colonel Amy Thompson, of the USS Warhawk. "Marines are locked and loaded." Captain Rick Stone, of the mining ship Ironclad. "My drilling equipment is ready to make some holes in their ships." Even Captain Helen Moore, of the merchant ship Starbound, reported ready for battle. "My cargo hold is full of medical supplies. I'll stay back and help the wounded." Jake looked at the tactical display. The Korthic ships were moving into attack formation. They were confident, maybe too confident. They had never fought humans before. They didn't know what they were about to face. All ships, attack pattern Delta. Target their formation center. Make them hurt. The battle began when the Korthic opened fire. Green energy beams lanced across space, hitting the human ships. The USS Valiant shook as enemy fire struck its shields, but the human ships didn't break formation. They didn't run. Instead, they did something that Korthik had never seen before. They attacked. Human ships were built different from alien vessels. Where alien ships were sleek and beautiful, human ships were tough and practical. They were designed to take damage and keep fighting. They were built by people who expected everything to go wrong. The USS Reaper took a direct hit that would have destroyed most alien ships. Captain Dan Cross just laughed and kept firing. That all you got? He called over the radio. The mining. Ship Ironclad wasn't even a warship, but Captain Rick Stone had turned his drilling equipment into weapons. He flew his ship right into the middle of the Korthik formation, using his mining lasers to cut through enemy hulls. The USS Warhawk launched its fighters and assault shuttles. Human Marines in powered armor flew through space, boarding enemy. Ships and fighting hand-to-hand in the corridors. The Korthik had never seen anything like it, but the humans were still outnumbered. Enemy fire was taking its toll. The USS Valiant's shields were failing. Other ships were reporting heavy damage. "Sir," said Lisa Brady, "we're getting a message from the planet. It's the Zalani. Put it through." The voice that came over the speakers was musical and frightened. "Human ships, this is Elder Zethara. We see you fighting for us. We do not understand why you risk your lives for strangers, but we are grateful. Please do not let our world die." Jake looked around his bridge. His crew was working frantically to keep the ship fighting. They were all risking their lives for people they had never met. It was crazy. It was stupid. It was the most human thing imaginable. "We won't let you die," Jake said into the communicator. "That's a promise." The battle raged for hours. Human ships took terrible damage, but kept fighting. The Korthik began to realize they were facing something they had never encountered before. These humans fought like devils. They took damage that should have killed them and kept coming. Captain Dan Cross's USS Reaper was hit so many times he was barely holding together. Half his crew was dead or wounded. His ship was leaking air and losing power, but he kept fighting. "Sir," his weapons officer said, "we're down to our last missiles." "Then we'll ram them," Cross said. "All power to engines." The USS Reaper more. Rekvin's ship accelerated toward the Korthik flagship. Enemy fire tore at its hull, but it kept coming. At the last second, Cross fired his remaining missiles point blank into the enemy ship's bridge. The explosion lit up space like a new sun. "Admiral." Korthik was dead. The Korthik flagship was destroyed. But the battle was far from over. "Sir," Lisa Brady called out, "we're getting more signals from hyperspace. Something big is coming." Jake looked at the tactical display. More ships were dropping out of hyperspace. At the edge of the system. For a moment, he thought it was Korthik reinforcements. Then he saw the identification signals. They were human ships. Lots of them. Admiral Kate Sullivan's voice came over the communicator. "Captain Morrison, this is Admiral Sullivan with the Third Fleet. Sorry, we're late to the party. Hope you saved some of the bad guys for us." Jake smiled for the first time since the battle began. The cavalry had arrived. The Korthik looked at their tactical displays and saw dozens of new human ships entering the system. Ships they had never seen before. Ships that looked even more dangerous than the ones they were already fighting. For the first time in their history, the Korthik Empire was afraid. The humans weren't just fighting for the Zalani anymore. They were fighting for the principle that innocent people should never face extinction alone, and they were winning. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood on the bridge of her flagship, the USS Thunderbolt, watching the battle unfold. The first wave of human ships had fought bravely, but they were badly outnumbered. Several ships were drifting in space, their crews dead or wounded. "Signal all ships," Kate ordered. Attack Formation Charlie. Target the enemy center. Let's show these Korthik what a real fleet looks like. The Third Fleet moved into battle with military precision. These were professional warships, with trained crews. The USS Devastator, under Captain Nina Walsh, led the charge. The experimental ship's new weapon systems tore through Korthik, shields like paper. But then something happened that changed everything. A Korthik cruiser, damaged and desperate, fired a lucky shot at the merchant ship Starbound. Captain Helen Moore had been staying back from the fighting, using her ship to rescue wounded sailors from damaged vessels. The enemy beam cut through the Starbound's hull like a knife. The ship broke apart in a ball of fire and light. Captain Moore and her crew of civilian volunteers died instantly. The effect on the human fleet was immediate. Every ship stopped what it was doing and turned toward the Korthik vessel that had fired the shot. The anger that came over the radio was unlike anything the aliens had ever heard. They killed Helen, someone said over the comm. They killed Grandma Helen. Captain Jake Morrison's voice cut through the chatter. All ships, this is Morrison. They just killed innocent people who are trying to help the wounded. That's not war. That's murder. What happened next would be talked about in military academies for generations. Every human ship in the system began broadcasting on emergency frequencies. Not to each other, but to Earth and every human colony in the galaxy. The message was simple. They killed our people. They killed civilians. We need help. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within minutes, hyperspace lanes across the galaxy lit up with human ships. The entire Second Fleet abandoned its patrol route and headed for the Zelani system. The experimental ship USS Devastator launched from Luna Base with a skeleton crew. Even the research vessel, USS Discovery, armed itself with improvised weapons and joined the fleet. But it wasn't just military ships. Civilian vessels across human space changed course and headed for the battle. Mining ships, cargo haulers, passenger liners, even small private yachts. If it could fly and carry a human crew, it was coming to the fight. Dr. Vex High, the Council xenobiologist, was monitoring the battle from a safe distance. He watched in amazement as the human response grew from a small rescue mission to what looked like a full-scale species mobilization. Fascinating, he whispered to himself. The humans are not responding to this as a military conflict. They are responding as if their entire species has been personally attacked. The Korthik were beginning to realize they had made a terrible mistake. Their tactical computers were showing hundreds of human ships converging on the system. Ships they had never seen before. Ships that looked like they were designed for one purpose: war. Admiral Roy Carter arrived with the Second Fleet just as the battle was reaching its peak. His flagship, the USS Vengeance, was the largest warship in human space. Its weapons could destroy a city from orbit. Captain Morrison, Carter called over the radio. Admiral Carter here. We got your message. What's the situation? Jake's voice was grim. They're murdering civilians, sir. This isn't a war anymore. It's an execution. Not on my watch, Carter replied. All ships, weapons free? Show them what happens when you kill innocent people. The battle that followed was unlike anything seen in galactic history. Wave after wave of human ships entered the system. Each new arrival brought fresh anger and determination. The humans fought with a fury that terrified the Korth Eke. Dr. Paul Kennedy, captain of the research vessel USS Discovery, had never commanded a warship before. But he flew his converted science ship into the thick of the battle, using his sensor arrays to find weak points in enemy shields for other ships to exploit. Captain Nina Walsh of the USS Devastator used her ship's experimental weapons to carve through enemy formations. The Devastator had been considered too dangerous for normal use, But Walsh pushed it to its limits and beyond. Even the civilian ships found ways to help. Mining ships used their industrial equipment as weapons. Cargo haulers rammed enemy vessels. Passenger liners served as mobile hospitals, treating wounded from both sides. The Korthik had never seen anything like it. In their experience, species fought for territory or resources or survival. But the humans were fighting for something else entirely. They were fighting for the principle that innocent people should never face extinction alone. "Sir," reported the tactical officer on the Korthik command ship, "we're detecting more human vessels entering the system. Estimate over 200 ships now." The new Korthik commander, Admiral Krekstar, looked at the tactical display with growing horror. The humans just kept coming. Every time his forces destroyed a human ship, 2 more took its place. "Where are they all coming from?" he demanded. "Unknown, sir. It appears they are converging from across the galaxy." Admiral Krekstar had fought in dozens of battles across dozens of worlds. He had never seen anything like this. The humans weren't just fighting a battle. They were fighting a war that seemed to involve their entire species. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the human admiral." "Put it through." Admiral Kate Sullivan's face appeared on the screen. Her expression was cold and hard. "Admiral Krekstar, I am Admiral Sullivan of the human fleet. You have attacked innocent people under our protection. You have killed civilians who are trying to help the wounded. This is your one chance to surrender." Krekstar laughed, but it sounded forced. "Surrender? We still outnumber you." "Check your sensors again," Sullivan said calmly. Krekstar looked at his tactical display. The human fleet had grown to over 300 ships, and more were arriving every minute. "Impossible," he breathed. "No species commits this many resources to help strangers." "You're not fighting strangers," Sullivan replied. "You're fighting humans. And we don't let innocent people die on our watch." The battle continued for hours. The Korthik fought desperately, but they were facing something they had never encountered before. The humans fought with the fury of a species that had decided the Korthik represented everything wrong with the Galaxy. Captain Jake Morrison's USS Valiant was badly damaged, but still fighting. Half his crew was dead or wounded. His ship was held together with emergency repairs and determination. "Sir," Lisa Brady called out, "we're getting a message from the planet. The Zelani want to thank us." "Tell them to thank us after we win," Jake replied. But even as he said it, Jake could see the tide of battle turning. The Korthik were being pushed back. Their ships were being destroyed or forced to retreat. The human fleet was winning. Dr. Vex High, still monitoring the battle, sent an urgent message to the Galactic Council. "The humans are not operating under any military doctrine we understand. They appear to be responding to this attack as a personal affront to their entire species. This is not warfare as we know it. This is the fury of an entire civilization." The battle for Zalara Prime was about to reach its climax. The humans had come from across the galaxy to protect innocent people they had never met. They had paid a terrible price in blood and ships, but they were winning, and the galaxy would never be the same. The final battle for Zalara Prime was not a battle at all. It was a slaughter, but not the kind the Korthik had planned. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Valiant, watching as the last Korthik ships tried to escape the system. All around him, hundreds of human vessels pursued the fleeing enemy. The Korthik Empire, which had conquered 47 worlds, was being destroyed by humans who had come from across the galaxy to protect strangers. "Sir," Lisa Brady called out, "we're getting a surrender signal from the Korthik flagship." Jake looked at the tactical display. The Korthik ship was badly damaged, drifting in space with its engines dead. "Put them through." Admiral Krekstar appeared on the screen. The proud Korthik commander looked beaten and afraid. His ship was dying around him, and his fleet was scattered or destroyed. "Human captain," Krekstar said, I wish to surrender. My fleet is defeated. We cannot fight anymore." Jake stared at the alien who had come to murder innocent people. "You came here to commit genocide. You killed civilians who were trying to help the wounded. Why should we accept your surrender? Because ... Krekstar struggled with the words. "Because that is what separates you from us. You protect the weak. We destroy them. I understand now." Jake was quiet for a long moment. Around him, his bridge crew waited for his decision. The easy thing would be to let the Korthik die. They deserved it. They had murdered countless innocent people across the galaxy. But that wasn't what humans did. "All ships," Jake said into his communicator. "This is Captain Morrison. The enemy is surrendering. Accept their surrender and treat their wounded. We're not like them." The human fleet began the long process of rescuing survivors from destroyed ships. Human medics worked to save Korthik wounded, even though those same aliens had come to murder the Zilani. It was something no other species would have done. Captain. Helen Moore was dead, along with dozens of other humans who had died protecting strangers. But their sacrifice had saved an entire species. Elder Zithara, leader of the Zilani, sent a message to the human fleet. "We do not understand why you came to help us. We are not your people. We had never met you before. But you risked everything to save us. How can we ever repay such kindness?" Jake thought about the question. How do you repay someone for saving your entire species? You don't need to repay. "US," he said finally. "Just remember that someone cared enough to help. And maybe someday, when you see someone else in trouble, you'll find a way to help them too." 3 days later, the human fleet gathered in orbit around Zalara Prime for a memorial service. They had won the battle, but the cost had been high. Good people had died. Ships had been destroyed. Families would never see their loved ones again. Captain Lisa Brady, now in command of the rebuilt USS Valiant, stood at the podium in the ship's main hangar. Jake Morrison was in the medical bay, recovering from injuries he had received in the final battle. "We came here to save the Zilani," Lisa said to the assembled crews. "We didn't come for glory or conquest. We came because innocent people were about to die, and we couldn't let that happen. Captain Helen Moore, Captain Dan Cross, and all the others who died here. They died for the simple idea that no one should face extinction alone." The ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy. Alien species watched in amazement as the humans honored their dead. Most species would have celebrated their victory. The humans mourned their losses. Dr. Vexhai, the council xenobiologist, was preparing his final report on the human response to the Zilani crisis. He had studied dozens of species, but he had never seen anything like this. "The humans call themselves Deathworlders," he wrote, "and we have used this term to dismiss them as primitive. But we have misunderstood what this means. They are not death dealers. They are death defiers. They have looked into the abyss of extinction and decided that no species should face it alone." His report would change how the galaxy viewed humanity. Forever. On Earth, Admiral Kate Sullivan stood in the shipyards, watching as new vessels were being built. Each ship bore the name of a hero who had died at Zalara Prime. The USS Helen Moore was a hospital ship. The USS Dan Cross was a heavy cruiser. The USS Valiant II was already under construction. "Admiral," Colonel Ben Wright said, "we're getting reports from across the galaxy. Several species are requesting human protection from aggressive neighbors. The Korthik Empire is collapsing, and their former victims want our help." Kate nodded slowly. "What's our response?" "The Council wants to meet with you. They're calling it an emergency session." Kate smiled grimly. Tell them we'll be there. But make it clear that we're not asking for permission to protect innocent people. We're just letting them know what we're going to do." The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike any meeting in its history. Representatives from dozens of species gathered to discuss what they were calling the human problem. Admiral Kate Sullivan sat at the human delegation table, flanked by Captain Jake Morrison, who had recovered from his injuries, and Dr. Kevin Park. Around them, alien representatives whispered nervously among themselves. "The humans have upset the balance of power," declared Ambassador Thekvar of the hegemony. "They cannot simply appoint themselves as protectors of the galaxy." Kate stood up slowly. "We didn't appoint ourselves as anything. We just refused to. Stand by while innocent people are murdered." "But this sets a dangerous precedent," said Counselor Vashti of the Confederation. "What gives you the right to interfere in conflicts between other species?" Jake Morrison leaned forward. "The same thing that should give all of you that right. Basic decency." The council chamber erupted in argument. Some species supported the human actions. Others worried about the implications. A few were openly hostile. Dr. Vexhai stood up from the observation gallery. "If I may," he said, "I have completed my study of the human response to the Zelani." "Crisis. Proceed," said the council speaker. "The humans did not respond to this crisis, as we would expect from any known species. They showed no concern for territorial gain, resource acquisition, or strategic advantage. Their entire response was based on what they call moral obligation, the idea that they have a duty to protect those who cannot protect themselves." The chamber was quiet now. "Furthermore," Dr. Vexhai continued, "their response was not limited to military forces. Civilian ships, cargo vessels, even private citizens joined the rescue mission. This suggests that the behavior is not learned military doctrine, but an instinctive species characteristic." "What are you saying?" asked the council speaker. "I am saying that the humans may be unique in the galaxy. They appear to be a species that considers the protection of innocent life to be more important than their own safety." After the council session, Kate walked with Jake through the corridors of the station. Through the windows, they could see human ships patrolling the space lanes, protecting merchant vessels from pirates and raiders. "Do you think we did the right thing?" Jake asked. Kate looked out at the stars. "Jake, there are billions of people in this galaxy. Most of them just want to live their lives in peace. They want to raise their children, create art, explore the universe. They don't want to hurt anyone." She paused at a window. "But there are also people like the Korthik, people who think strength gives them the right to hurt others. If we don't stand up to them, who will?" Jake nodded. "The Zelani couldn't stand up to them." "Exactly. And there are probably dozens of other species who can't defend themselves either. Maybe hundreds." Back on Zelara Prime, the crystal cities were being rebuilt. The Zelani had survived their first encounter with galactic evil, thanks to humans they had never met. But they were changed by the experience. Elder Zethara stood in the rebuilt council chamber, addressing her people. "We have learned something important," she said. "We learned that there are those in the galaxy who would destroy us simply because they can. But we also learned that there are others who will risk everything to protect us. What do we do with this knowledge?" asked a young Zelani. "We remember," Zethar replied. "We remember that someone cared enough to save us. And we find ways to help others when they need it." The Zelani began sending teachers and artists to other worlds. They shared their knowledge of crystal technology and their beautiful music. They could not fight wars, but they could heal the damage that wars left behind. Across the galaxy, the effects of the Battle of Zelara Prime continued to spread. The Korthek Empire collapsed as their subject worlds rebelled, knowing that humans would protect them. Pirate fleets disbanded rather than face human patrols. Aggressive species found themselves isolated as peaceful worlds formed. Alliances under human protection. The galaxy was changing. And it was changing because of humanity's simple belief that innocent people should never face extinction alone. On the bridge of the new USS Valiant II, Captain Lisa Brady received a message from a species called the Metheny. They were small, peaceful creatures who were being threatened by raiders. "Captain," her communications officer said, "they're asking for help." Lisa looked at the message. The Metheny were 3 star systems away. They had no strategic value to humanity. Helping them would be dangerous and expensive. "Set course for the Metheny system," she ordered. "Maximum speed." "Yes, ma'am." As the USS Valiant II jumped to hyperspace, Lisa thought about Kaptai.